Good evening, everyone. My name is Ira Allah, and I'm with the CLEO Institute. Tonight, we bring you the part two of our webinar series brought to you by Miami ResilientSea Project. Later on, we'll have some representatives from Miami ResilientSea who will speak more about the project, how you can get involved and stay connected with their work. I'm going to well, before I kick it off to Owen, I am one of the climate resilience managers working to scale our Empowering Resilient Women's program. So we're super excited about cohort 7. I will pass it now to Owen Gaither, who will present himself, and then our two lovely guests today, Alika and Sam.
Hello, yeah, I'm Owen Gaither. I'm the Senior Education and Outreach Manager. And then whoever wants to go, Alika.
Thank you. My name is Alika, calling in from St. Pete, Florida, and I'm the co-executive lead of CLEO, and I'll pass it to my lovely coworker, Sam.
Hello, my name's Sam, based in Tampa, Florida, and I'm the other co-executive leader of CLEO. I'm excited to talk to y'all today.
Thank you. Um, Gloria just came at the perfect time. Welcome, Dr. Gloria Blez, who is the Senior Project Manager for Miami ResilientSea. Gloria, if you can please share a little bit with our audience about the project and how we are bringing together organizations like CLEO.
Yes, absolutely. Hi, everyone. Thank you for your patience. My name is Gloria Blaze. So I'm the Senior Program Manager at Miami Community Resiliency. We're happy to collaborate with CLEO to bring this programming to you. So if you didn't know, Resiliency, Miami Community Resiliency is a holistic community engagement program / project that unites CLEO, Debris Free Oceans, Miami Waterkeeper, Rescue a Reef, Black Women in Ecology Evolution, and Black Women in Ecology Evolution and Marine Science, and Frost, Museum Volunteers for the Environment, to engage all of Miami-Dade, not just the communities that are more resourced than the rest, in some interesting, fun, and impactful work that's currently happening. And so we're happy to be here to be a part of CLEO's series. And so this evening is a culmination of series that CLEO's putting together leading up to this weekend. Workday / workshop on the 15th. So we're hoping that this type of programming gets you excited, gets you to think, but also gets you to feel empowered to be able to communicate with people in your community, but also those in political roles or regional roles or local roles. So happy to be here. So please sign up for our email list. We have about 40 events that we've planned for the entire Miami Community Resiliency project. So every year, CLEO, as we are seeing here, is providing programs and events as part of resiliency. And we hope that this gets the spark going and gets you more engaged in some awesome things happening in the county. And I have here as well Maya Garrison, who's our project intern. So she's on the back end, but I wanted to shout her out while she's here. And so thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, CLEO team and guests, for joining and making this a great evening.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Blaz. We will drop all of those links for you in our chat. So just a few housekeeping. We do have the Q&A that's open. So if you have any questions during the presentation, you don't want to lose it, you don't want to forget it, please do drop it in the chat and we will do our best to respond to all of the questions towards the end of the presentation. And if you have any comments as the presenters are speaking, feel free. This is a community where we want to build dialogue. So feel free to drop things in the chat, emojis, just reactions to whatever you're hearing. And I did want to say that we kicked off this series with a webinar last week facilitated by Owen that talked a lot more about civic engagement and how you can get involved in your community and really scale down any action that you want to take so that you're not so overwhelmed by just taking action within your neighborhood, if that's where you want to start. So this is the sort of the second phase of this. So understanding a little bit more about policy and how you can advocate at the different levels, be it local or state, but also to just kind of see how human power has been galvanized and mobilized to really gain some powerful wins from working with high school students to college students to community leaders, temple community members, all of the different places where people abide. And so we're super excited to hear from Sam and Alika about the different measures that they've taken with their respective groups throughout the state of Florida, to really just get people moving into action. So without further ado, give it up for Sam and Alika.
Thank you so much. That was a wonderful introduction. And I'm just honored to be here alongside my coworker, sharing with y'all. And just want to preface this presentation that we could spend a long time talking about a lot of this stuff, but this is just a little bit of a high-level overview to get folks started with their journey into climate advocacy. So if anything resonates with you, encourage you to take some follow-up steps and hopefully you can feel inspired. So we are going to learn about how all of us can be part of systematic change in a positive way for the planet, whether you're taking a small action, whether you have 30 seconds, whether you have a couple days. And there's lots of opportunities out there to get engaged. So I know we have a nice intimate group here, but would love to just have everyone share in the chat your name, where you're calling in from, and one way you take climate or environmental action, big or small. Alrighty. I'm gonna give y'all just a minute or so to share. While y'all share in the chat, I'm just gonna go ahead and introduce my lovely coworker, Sam, again, if you wanna share a little bit more about yourself as others respond in the chat and maybe one way that you take climate or environmental action.
I'd love to. So a little bit about me, based in Tampa, Florida. I graduated from Florida State 2 years ago now, go Knowles, with a degree in psychology and environmental science. I've just been growing and learning post-grad, trying to understand more about environmental justice, climate action, and how I can support myself mentally, support others mentally, kind of during this crazy time. We're gonna, as we'll get into it. And one way I forget the question, do a daily climate action. I recycle, which isn't a big impact in itself, but I do that. I try to educate one friend a day, even one friend a week on climate action. I try to plug in action alerts or get them more involved. And that's me.
So thank you for sharing, Sam. I think y'all can only share in the chat with hosts and panelists. So I see someone shared, Gloria shared that she likes to learn about vulnerable areas around the globe and the policies that influence them. So appreciate you sharing that. And Rachel shared that her daily action is to listen to podcasts and stay informed, and also just helped as a citizen scientist by sending some videos to mantis research of rarely sighted pygmy devil rays at the beach yesterday. I love that. Manta rays, yes. Thank you for sharing that. So that's really, really cool. And one way that I take action for the climate and environment is this work, really. It helps me feel a little less anxious about some of the struggles and consequences of climate. And we like to say here that action is the antidote to despair. And I also like to take care of myself because self-care is earth care as well. And that's one way that I take environmental action. All right, so just going into our agenda here, we're gonna go into some grounding. We're gonna talk about the power of the vote, and we're gonna keep going down from there from a federal level to a state level and to a local level, and end with a Q&A. Just a little bit of a broad overview here. And just to share a little bit more about CLEO. So CLEO is a fiscally sponsored project under the CLEO Institute. We really focus on working with young people and develop the next generation of climate leaders. So we do that by going into high schools. Owen on the call leads a lot of that work. Me and Sam work with a lot of college students. We currently have 13 chapters across the state and growing. And we believe that all the solutions to climate change already exist, but we just do need that political will to actually create the systematic change that we need to implement those solutions. So we build power through building youth movements with students to be able to create that political will. Very broad overview. And now we're going to do a little bit of level setting here. This is our first pop quiz question. So climate change is 1, real, 2, human caused, 3, happening now, or 4, all of the above.
Just a bit of an update. I have updated the settings so that everyone could chat with everyone. My apologies.
Hey, awesome. Thank you, Ariola. All right, I'm seeing lots of all of the above, and that is correct. Climate change is real, primarily caused by human activities such as burning fossil fuels, and there's overwhelming scientific consensus on this fact. So great job, everyone. Now we have one more question here. How many people in the US believe that climate change is happening? Is it 14, 33, 58, 72? All right, I'm seeing Owen says 58. We got, all right, it looks like it's kind of split between here. All right, so the answer is actually 72%. And this is according to Yale's study on climate change's 6 Americas. So the reason I'm sharing this is because there's a common belief and misconception that this number is a lot lower, and that prevents us from having really important conversations with each other, which then results in less climate action. So the studies are out there that a lot of people already believe that climate change is real, and that should be encouraging us to kind of not self-silence and have more conversations around this. All right, so kind of recapping there a little bit more. So most people do believe that climate change is real and human caused and happening now, but don't know what to do about it. So today, just as an overview, we're going to discuss whether you have 30 seconds, 30 minutes or more, there's always a way to get involved. So just grounding very quickly, there has been a lot going on a federal level when it comes to reversals of climate efforts, and these headlines kind of give us a snapshot of those things. When I see headlines like this, I feel a bit overwhelmed, and that really encourages me to like kind of zoom in on local ways that we can take action. So if that helps anyone, this is kind of like the purpose of the webinar is to share like local ways that we can take action and kind of ripple out our impact from there. So if you only have 30 seconds, there are some quick actions you can take. Right now, many global leaders are meeting in Brazil for COP30, and we have a petition to push those global leaders to make decisions to reduce our pollution. So you can scan this QR code here to sign that petition and make your voice heard in that way. And then we also have many action alerts on our website that kind of vary, but since we're talking about federal issues in general, there's one that's around pressuring the EPA to actually do their job and to protect what's called the endangerment finding, which gave us the scientific basis to say that fossil fuels are causing the warming of our planet. which causes policy to reflect that. So just take a moment to sign those. And Sam, thank you so much. It has been dropped in the chat as well. And really appreciate everyone making their voice heard. Alrighty. So another thing that we can do is vote. So we're going to be talking a lot about federal, state, and local climate action, but they all have one thing in common, and that's that elected officials you have the power to vote for. Local elections are especially important because they often come a lot closer and they affect your community that you directly live in. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. So my next call to action is if you are not already registered to vote, if you need to update your voter registration, if you'd like to request a vote by ballot, or if you'd like to take it a step further and get election reminders, these are all resources that we have compiled, and it only takes about a minute or two to complete each of these, and can't emphasize enough how important it is to vote. And yeah, thank you, Sam, again for dropping those in the chat. And yep, the City of Miami runoff is December 9th, and we're going to talk about that a little more later as well. All right, so we're going to think globally and act locally. That is our invitation here. And I'm going to pass it off to Sam to talk about state policy.
Woo! State policy. Those two words maybe or maybe don't sound intimidating. When I first got into the space, I thought banning plastic straws would save the world. Little did I know that climate justice and environmental racism were a huge deal, and banning plastic straws is unfortunately not going to fix that, as easy and nice as that would be. So don't think of state advocacy as intimidating, something that you can't achieve, something inaccessible. It's right there in your backyard, is I'll get into, and just know that an elected official could be me, could be Alika, could be you. An elected official is just a person, a pet owner, a family member who happens to be in a really important position. Next slide, please. So kind of some more level setting. Florida has 120 state representatives and 40 senators. And senators, they serve a 4-year term, and state reps serve a 2-year term. And if you've ever heard the terms session, legislative session, Florida session, I'm referring to the 60 days when all of these people convene in Tallahassee, Florida, our state capital, and discuss bills, vote on bills, pass bills, reject bills, to all of that core lobbying that what creates laws for our state. And this session is starting in January this year because we have the midterm elections for 2026, but it usually starts in March, but because there's elections, it starts earlier. Next slide, please. Who are your state elected officials, guys? Do you know? It's okay if you don't, but another pop quiz. If you do, definitely drop it in the chat. And we include these QR codes to find your Florida state senator and your state rep. All you do is scan it. I believe you just put in your address, and your rep and senator should come up. Alika, pop quiz, do you know your state senator or rep?
Yes, my Florida state senator is Senator Rouson, and my Florida state representative is Representative Rayner.
Awesome. Some good elected officials. And it might take a while, but once you find it out, let us know in the chat. I'll give it like 10 more seconds for folks to scan the QR code, then we can hop on over. All right, we can slide on over to the next one. Nice. So we have these elected officials. How do we talk to them? with the CLEO Institute, we focus mainly on grassroots advocacy, but I wanted to make sure we identify both. When you hear the word lobbyist, a lot of the time they're doing grass tops lobbying. So literally think about it like there's a patch of grass and they're going down to the roots, grass tops, grass roots from the bottom up. Get it? Roots to the grass. I think that's clear. But grass tops is you walk right down to your state legislator, right to the decision maker in hopes to get them to vote in a way that you want. You think of corporate lobbyists, think of like FPL lobbyists, think of like nationwide, statewide lobbyists. Those are the people that generally go straight to the decision makers. They have a ton of influence and try to get legislators to vote one way or not on a bill. And this is lobbying, and there's a lot of public lobbyists and private lobbyists. Grassroots, which is my personal favorite and really exciting. It's all about people power. We're the people that walk to the door, that walk down to the Capitol, and we build pressure through numbers. You don't have to set a formal meeting if you don't want to. You don't have to have years and years of lobbying skills. You don't have to be an expert on an issue. All you have to do is care, even a little bit, and build up the courage to talk to your state elected officials. I said earlier, these elected officials are just people. They are. It is super intimidating to talk to someone who has this lots of power to pass and deny bills, but they were a student once. I keep using an analogy, pet owner, but think of like a scary person and then think of them with like a little hamster as a pet. To me, that like breaks the ice for me every time. And grassroots is so powerful. It shows what the constituents want for their area to be done. If there's a water pollution crisis in Miami-Dade, as an example, grass tops, public and private lobbyists might not be the first to know about that issue, but it's the people that live in that community that are experiencing issues that are going to know, be directly affected, and then have the ability to go talk to their elected officials about it. And building pressure through numbers works. The action alerts Alika shared, it might seem like your voice is not being heard. You scan a QR code, you virtually sign a petition or an action alert, and then you move on. It might feel like it does nothing, but it does. Every single number, depending on the action, we'll take to that elected official. We'll take to COP 30 and show like X amount of people feel X, Y, and Z, and this is why you should care. So it's all about numbers. It's not just one lobbyist, it's about the people that you represent. I think I'm done on my soapbox. Next slide, please. So, been rambling about numbers and how important it is to use your voice and advocate to your state elected officials. We had a huge win recently. It was all over the news across the state, but we had an attack on our state parks. If you remember, pickleball courts, tennis courts, hotels potentially popping up on state parks. This is that issue. We were one of the many organizations that supported the passage of this bill that protected our state parks from that awful development. And we were really proud of it. We spoke at FDEP's Capitol in Tallahassee. We rallied on the steps of the Florida Capitol. We spoke to our elected officials in person, signed action alerts that sent emails right to our legislators' inboxes, and it worked. The people spoke. There was a humongous outcry, and we won. And now our state parks are protected, and that's huge. And I didn't need to be an expert on development. Alika didn't need to be an expert on grassroots lobbying or an expert on how to public speak or an expert on X, Y, and Z. We just used our voice and what we thought was right. And people listened. Our legislators listened and took action. So if you were a part of this, even if you just heard about it and talked about it to someone, like you helped make that impact. And it was a really huge one. I'm really proud that we played a role in. Next slide, please. Now I'm going to get into some nitty-gritty terms, not because I want to throw random language at you all, but because it's becoming more and more relevant. I think we see it a lot more in action alerts, media, just talking about it amongst colleagues. Preemption. Has anyone heard of that word preemption before? If not, it's okay. When I first heard it, I did not, it was a new term to me that I learned. But preemption is essentially a law that prevents municipal areas from passing their own laws on a specific topic. As an example, back in 2023, a bill was passed to prevent local governments from passing heat protection for outdoor workers. Crazy, right? So essentially, I'm going to use Miami-Dade as an example. If Miami-Dade wanted to instill an ordinance to be like, to say outdoor workers need 15 minutes of shaded water breaks every hour they work, they get a heat safety training, a heat exhaustion training. Because of this bill that was passed in 2023, Miami-Dade is not allowed to do that. Their right to do that was taken away because of preemption. As another example, a bill was passed that prevents local governments from banning single-use plastic. So in Pinellas County, if they wanted to ban single-use plastic cups, as a random example, they could not because their ability was preempted to do that. I hope that makes sense. But preemption, as Lika said in the chat, boo, it takes away a lot of local power and a lot of the purpose of a local government. The local government is there to help its community. They know it best. And to preempt certain things from them being allowed to do is quite problematic. But this is, on the flip side, your opportunity to protect your home, protect your community, and email and call your elected officials and tell them why the preemption on preventing local governments from passing heat protections or banning single plastics is not a good thing for your community. And hear your voice is like so valuable. At the state level, they hear public comment, but if you don't email your elected official, if you don't speak to them, they're not going to know. They have hundreds of bills to look for and to read and to understand and digest. So it's up to us to bring these huge issues to the forefront of our elected officials' minds. Next slide. So what are we going to do with all this power, all this people power, all this action? You're going to join me in Tallahassee. I know, crazy. We just met, but we're already going to Tallahassee together. Every year, CLEO partners with youth-led organizations across the state for Earth Advocacy Day. Everything I just talked about, talking to your elected officials, reading bills, saying your piece, we train you. You get bussed up to Tallahassee for free or donation-based ticket. You could spend $2, you could donate $100, but any monetary amount or a free ticket gets you to the Capitol. We provide free lodging, free meals, and tons of free training. And it's a beautiful way to get involved with your community, meet like-minded individuals, and take some action. So I will drop the link to the interest form in the chat. The QR code is also there. Last year, we had about over 400 young people attend. And if you don't consider yourself young, that's okay. And you should still join because we make space for everyone. It's youth-led, but we want anyone and everyone across the state to come and get the opportunity to meet with their elected officials. We met with 80 elected officials this past Earth Advocacy Day in March, and we're aiming to hit that and meet with more of them. This is the end of my part. Thank you all for the opportunity to allow me to speak. If anything didn't make sense or if you want any clarification, let me know in the Q&A and chat, and I'll pass it back to my colleague Alika to talk about local advocacy.
Thank you so much, Sam, and really hope to see some of y'all out there in Tallahassee this year, or next year rather, and want to bring it down to an even more local level. We talked about state, now we're going to talk about local advocacy. Often local advocacy kind of gets overlooked. Going to a lot of like city and county commission spaces I don't really see like a lot of youth members represented. I do see some like very involved residents, but very often I feel like a lot of the focus is on these like federal, bigger picture issues, and the local advocacy kind of is not front and center. But this is where our voices are even more amplified because it's so local. We can give public comment at our city commission meetings. We can do it at our county level. We can send emails to our elected officials on a local level and call them as well. We can always request meetings and say, hey, I'm experiencing this problem on my street. And I know that a lot of my neighbors feel the same way. And that's kind of how you can address some of these issues. So I guess just like as some big picture advice, if you want to get started, there's like so many amazing organizations out there looking for support in volunteership, and CLEO and Gen CLEO is one of those organizations. We're all across the state if you want to get involved in one of our local campaigns. But there's also other organizations out there as well. And if you find one that resonates with you, it's a way to connect with your community, have a positive impact, and be able to even like make friends and socialize and kind of just get out in the world more. So that's one of my biggest pieces of advice when it comes to just getting involved in your community is like finding an organization or a group that really speaks to you. All right, I said we would talk about local elections, and it is that time to talk about our December 9th runoff election in the city of Miami. Um, on November 4th, just last week, there was a election to see who would win the City of Miami mayor race, the District 3 commission seat in the City of Miami, and the District 5 commission seat. And since in the city mayoral race and in District 3, no candidate got more than 50% of the vote, it is going to a runoff election. And runoff elections and odd year elections in general and local elections have a lot lower turnout than when we see on a presidential general election year. And obviously, the reason is it's not presidential, so you're not going to see all of those. Like, you're voting for the president, and then you're seeing all these down ballot elected officials. But if there's not a ton of attention, um, or information out there on local elections, a lot of people tend to just skip them. Um, that's why I really recommend a vote by mail request because that's how I remember elections, obviously, and through doing this work. But um, when you request to vote by mail, you'll literally get your ballot in the mail and you'll never miss an election again because you'll know that like there's something in the mail that's saying that there's an election coming up. Um, And the reason we're talking about elections as a climate organization is because we really can take a lot of individual action, and that is really, really important and encouraged. But on top of that, we also need systematic change, and that can only happen through decision makers taking bold action to reduce our pollution, to reduce the impacts of the climate crisis. Um, and we need to make sure that those that are most at risk are not left behind in that process to just transition to clean energy as well. So we really need leaders that are looking out for their community members, that are representative of their community members. So local elections, state elections, and federal elections are how we make that change happen. Um, wait. So yes, they often come very close as well. Just last week, there was an election in the city of Orlando where a candidate was only 13 votes away from claiming a victory. That is basically how many people are in this webinar right now, almost. If all of us lived there and voted, we would have been very, very close. to changing results, basically. And a lot of elections are like this. I'm not going to say all local elections come this close because that's not true, but there are definitely a few that come very, very close. Um, Another example, since we do have a little bit of time, another example I want to give is specific to Miami, since I think we have some folks from Miami here, is for an elected official named JJR, who was considered a climate champion. He would come to his I think he was a county commissioner, and he would come in wearing rain boots because he was trying to draw attention to the fact that sea levels were rising and that we needed to actually deal with this problem of sea level rise and flooding that was occurring in Miami, and connected it directly to climate. And he was running for office, and there was actually a ghost candidate that had a very similar name to him on the ballot, and it ended up siphoning away votes. He would have won, but it siphoned away votes from him. And then it come to find out that utility company Florida Power and Light was kind of behind that ghost candidate being on the ballot. So there's definitely corruption out there, and a lot. And he only lost by, like, I think it was like between 30 and 40 votes. So it was very, very close. So all to say that your vote really matters, especially on a local level. All right.